Wow. People don't remember the original woke, Malcolm X. Oh, you woke? Time to get up. Welcome to Thought You're Woke, No Speed Limit Podcast. I'm your host, Alvin. Guys, I want to do something up front. I want to apologize that it's been a while since I have done a regular show. But today I want to talk about some important things. I'm recording this on Saturday, so events could change. And I'm also watching Ohio and Rutgers. Looks like Ohio's leading 14-3. Not the game I want to watch today. I want to actually be at the UAB Blazers game. Go Blazers. But unfortunately, cannot be there to do the things I have to do at home. That being said, I need you guys to like, share, and subscribe. It is very important that you like, share, and subscribe. And if you look below down there, you'll see my little Cash App thing running across the bottom of the screen. Just make sure that you also, if you'd like to donate there. All donations can go to Cash App at Thought You Were Woke. And here we go with the show. Today I want to talk about interesting subjects that have come up about two celebrities. That is Pharrell and Nicki Minaj. Uh, all I can say is this to start it out. This is an interesting subject. We've got two wonderful celebrities that have decided to speak their mind on current events. And let you hear what Pharrell had to say.
As we look at what's going on in the current political climate, I'm just saying to want to turn everybody off. I hate politics. Like despise them. It's a magic trick that it's not real. I don't believe in either side. So I think when you pick a side, you are only you are inadvertently supporting division. Then yeah, it's not a popular point of view, but I just gotta say that. Think about it. The wells are drying up, and then okay, now the diversity's off the table, now equity's off the table, now inclusion's off the table. So that makes me ask myself, okay, so how do we survive? Well, are there black people here for that tonight? Yeah. And in your heart, do you think for what it is that you do and who you are, do you think you're the best? Okay, so do you want the job because you're black or because you're the best? Do you want someone to support your startup because you're black or because you're the best? Right, so I think now for me it's about us having the best ambition. That's the reason why you should support these businesses. Yes, they happen to be black and brown, but it should be based on the thesis that we're the best, not because we are a total shade of a skin color. That's a point of view that I have now that I'm resting on. And if diversity, equity, and inclusion ever comes back in style, cool. But in the meantime, I'm going to focus on being the best because I can bank on that. Because that's what's going to get you the position. Where I don't want you to give me anything. I want you to panic and not let me out the room because I'm the best.
All right. So Pharrell done said a whole bunch of stuff. Basically, what you can hear there, he's railing against politics, and politics is fake, and all this stuff. I have some other videos where some of our wonderful leading podcasts in the world have made their comments about this, and I'm gonna go ahead and show that here, and then I'm gonna give you my opinion.
That's actually politics. So what the hell are you talking about at your 5th annual Black Ambition Demo Day in Miami? And then you make this ridiculous comment about, well, what are we going to do? You didn't get a job because you're black. What are you talking about? We've long said we were the best in applying for a job. But for real, this bullshit about merit, that's that matter nonsense. We know damn well black folks have been highly qualified for decades, for centuries, and were overlooked by people. For real, in the history of the United States, there have only been 3 black Supreme Court justices. Do you think in the history of the United States, only 3 black people were qualified?
I'm going to focus on being the best because I can bank on that.
All right, so here's what I didn't like about what Pharrell said, respectfully. There has been this framing that black people want to be given things just because they're black. The framing did not come from black people. The framing came from white people. And frankly, it's a white supremacist talking point. And the entire framing, as we know, around diversity, equity, and inclusion is steeped in white people having hacked or having created their own definition of DEI, which was never the intention or purpose of DEI. What these same people do not understand, and I don't think Pharrell understands this based off his commentary, is that the whole point of DEI was not to just give people jobs and give people opportunities just based off their skin color or based off them being a woman. The entire point of DEI was to include people who were historically excluded from jobs, from promotions, from consideration. That was the entire point. Black people have understood the number one rule for a long time, longer than white people understood it, that's for sure. What's the number one thing, or at least among the many things that Black people are told, Black children are told, from the time you get here on this planet? What are we all told? We got to be twice as good to get what? Say it with me, Black people at home. Half as much. We have always understood that the only way we are going to open doors is with our excellence. The only way. We know we can't be mediocre. They're not even looking to let us in the door, so we think we got the ability to be mediocre? No. It's either excellence or bust for us.
And so, really, the question becomes, because there's so much to be said here. Like, one, I'm going to try to break this down into a few talking points. So first, let's just start with politics, because that's what he led with, right? He hates politics. He thinks it's divisive. Let's start there. The reality is nobody likes politics. Politics is not enjoyable. It is stressful to follow. But the reality is when you don't do politics, politics will do you. Even as somebody who has a channel that tends to spend a lot of time on subjects surrounding the Black community and on politics, I don't like politics. I don't want to follow that crap every day because it's draining, it's stressful, it's exhausting. But I'm not going to turn a blind eye to what's happening around me and then tell everybody else to stay in delusion land too. Because again, now we're leading everybody into a burning house. And somebody like Pharrell Williams continues to do that over and over again. And mainly it's because he's what I call one of these digestible Black celebrities. Somebody who's going to remain neutral in everything because it keeps his pockets lined up. As long as he keeps the people who are paying him happy by not shaking the table, by not challenging the status quo, by not really addressing the flaws that exist with anti-Blackness, he will always be paid, and he understands that. So he's always going to just, give us what you call symbolism nuggets and tell us we're all crazy. And if we just move the same way he does, we'll all be all right. That is dangerous, and I have an issue with that. And so the idea of saying that politics is
just to be honest with you, we didn't agree on everything. There is a way that I think that these types of things should be discussed and talked about that did not come across in what he was saying. And I think that we had that conversation. He listened, and we had that conversation. This is what I would say. And I think this is for everyone that's like Pharrell, and let's be honest about who he is. He's someone that has had a tremendous amount of influence and success over the course of a phenomenal career. For everyone that is like Pharrell, for everyone that actually cares about people and wants to help people and wants to be involved in people's lives, I would say everybody don't have to have someone that you can have conversations with around situations or things that you are uninitiated on. Like things that you don't, because not everybody is meant to be able to speak on these things. And he said that that's not his thing. His thing is not speaking on issues like this. One of the
first things he said.
His thing is not speaking on issues. His thing is being able to move economic power, to be able to move corporate power, to be able to move community power, to be able to get things done. That's his thing. So then the question is, if you are him, what do you do to make sure that things like this that are subtracting to your overall goal, that those things don't happen? Because we do live in a climate right now where the fight is existential. We're going to talk to Senator Schatz about this.
So here's what I'm going to say about Pharrell. I'm giving it a historical context. So, after World War II, Black American soldiers came home. They fought in World War II. They achieved during World War II. They did everything they could to show that they had merit. At the end of the day, however, they were denied GI Bills. They were denied all the financial gains they could have gotten when they came home as veterans from the war that their white counterparts were allowed to have. So Black people, then again, did not get a chance to build wealth the way that other people did because they were denied these things. Reason why I'm bringing this up with Pharrell, Pharrell sat there and he kind of, what we can say is he was real basic with what he said. First, like he said, politics. Politics is fake. It's not real. Politics, we know, they promise you a lot of things and look what's happened. That's what he said. Then he went on to talk about, basically about merit. He was saying, do y'all think that you guys are the best? Well, then show them that you're the best. Since we don't have DEI anymore, let's show them that, we're the best in the room. And you're not looking at my color. You're looking at if I'm the best or I'm not the best, so on and so forth. He said something similar to that. Then he came up at the end. I don't want to be known by my color, but I want to be be the man that you don't want to let out the room because I am the best. Okay. So now that I've told you the context of that, where black men went to war, achieved in all kinds of Tuskegee Airmen, what I think it was the 405th Battalion, stormed across Europe. There were black men in units, the 99th, that fought in the Pacific, uh, stormed the beaches of all these islands and places like that, and fought in the war. They did not, even though they achieved, they were not granted the right to, and that's what affirmative action does today. It allows those who have always achieved a chance at the things they didn't have before. We still have problems today with housing, where people literally, black people, somebody will walk up in a house that's exactly the same as a white person's house. It should be the same evaluation, gets a separate evaluation, and their houses are cheaper, are given a lesser evaluation than a white person. Person goes to the bank, same credit rating, they get a smaller loan than a person who had a white person with the same credit rating who gets a bigger loan. All those things. This is about chances, about things in our life. It's not that you can't achieve. You could be an overachiever and you're not getting your due credit because of how the system reacts. I bring up Charlie Kirk when he said about the pilot on the plane. Well, there were places where they wouldn't even look at a black pilot. We talking about the Tuskegee Airmen, how great they were. There were people who literally thought, oh, they can't fly a plane, they can't do this, and they can't do that. They became the most wanted pilots by the end of the war. Again, when people don't see your merit, it's called assumption. They assume or stereotype black people as incapable of doing certain things, and then when we achieve, then they get mad and say, well, that's because of affirmative action, it's because of DEI, overlooking. And this is not me trying to go against affirmative action or DEI. This is me going against what they're trying to do. Okay. So they try to throw in this merit system. It's about merit. The hardest worker, my hard work and my achievements. I achieved this and I achieved that and I did A, B, and C and D, and you didn't do any of those things, right? But there was something that got you there because you're the white guy in the room. You got an opportunity to get there to achieve, whereas the black guy has to work twice as hard to get in that same room. That's where affirmative action DEI come in. It levels the playing field. It says you can't go over here to Charlie's neighborhood without going to James' neighborhood and checking out to see whether they can be on that same application and they can be in that same job. Now, how those things get messed up by businesses when businesses hit artificial quota systems or say stupid stuff like they did with the I'm going out to look for black pilots, and it turns into something else, right? So again, what I'm saying is Pharell misspoke. Pharrell misspoke in how he talked about these two things. And then when we talk about politics, if it wasn't for the black men who came back from World War II protesting, then they wouldn't have worked up to the change that eventually happened, that eventually wrote the Civil Rights Bill, that eventually wrote the Voting Rights Act, that got affirmative action, that desegregated schools. If it wasn't for the black men who came back, the soldiers who had achieved but were not properly recognized, then we wouldn't be sitting here today talking about the achievements of Pharrell. We wouldn't be talking about the achievements of any black people at all in that ground. When it came to Ketanji Brown being on the Supreme Court, she is more as qualified or more qualified than her white counterparts on that same Supreme Court. But like I said, we live in a system that would have said, you know what? Because she's black, she's a failure, she's not successful. We ain't even looking in her direction. We're gonna look at that white guy over there. We're gonna put him in that position. He's gonna say, "Well, look, I made it because of my." Then she got totally just left out of the system, even though black people overachieved to get in there. So here comes Pharrell saying all the stuff he's saying, and he's undermining all of that by saying, "I don't want to be recognized because I'm black. I want to be recognized because of my achievement." Again, that's a white trope that you've allowed to take over your idea of what affirmative action or what DEI, affirmative action, all that stuff really means. DEI, affirmative diversity. That's another thing. They never say the diversity, equity, inclusion. They just say DEI. It's about diversity, diversity of ideas, diversity of thoughts, diversity of workers, diversity of people. That's what it's about. Equity, equality of things. Like if I got the same grades as a white person, I should be considered the same as a white person. If I've got the achievements of a white person, as a black person, I should be achieved the same when I go to get a job or when it comes to rewards like Pharrell's Grammys, right? Uh, I should be equal, and then inclusion. I should be included in the process of creating these things because I shown that I can achieve this. And you can't exclude me because of the color of my skin, because of my sexuality, because of my religion. You shouldn't exclude me because of those things. You can't assume things. You can't say anything. You can't do that. That is how we've reached this. And the most prosperous cities in the United States are the ones that are the most diverse, like LA and New York, like Chicago, like Seattle, Atlanta, Georgia. If you're a diversity, you have all these different things, then that's where we lead to uh, wealth and economic growth. Not making silly statements about affirmative action off of sound like you don't understand what that's about or not really understand what politics are about. That's beside the point. I've said my point about Pharrell. Let's move on to Nicki Minaj, and this is another case. Talk about bad DEI. Okay. Trump's trying to show his diversity, equity, and inclusion, so he decided to pick Nicki Minaj, a native of Trinidad and Tobago, American citizen now, to talk about what's going on in Nigeria. Watch this.
Please. Well, thank you, Ambassador Waltz, for this invitation. It is an honor to stand on this stage with you and the other distinguished speakers here today to shine a spotlight on the deadly threat faced by thousands of Christians in Nigeria. I would like to thank President Trump for prioritizing this issue and for his leadership on the global stage and calling for urgent action to defend Christians in Nigeria, to combat extremism, and to bring a stop to violence against those who simply want to exercise their natural right to freedom of religion or belief. I stand here as a proud New Yorker with a deep sense of gratitude that we live in a country where we can freely and safely worship God regardless of one's creed, background, or politics. No group should ever be persecuted for practicing their religion, like I recently stated on social media. And we don't have to share the same beliefs in order for us to respect each other. We're way beyond thinking or expecting or assuming for, the person sitting next to you to have the exact same beliefs. We're beyond that. That's ridiculous. But that shouldn't make one person feel less safe than anyone in any room.
All right, so let's talk about what you just heard from Nicki Minaj. The problem with Nicki Minaj is this: the same problem that there's a different problem here than it is with Pharrell. So Donald Trump decided this would be his spokesperson to the UN. First of all, recognize one thing all of a sudden. Donald Trump felt like he needed a black person to talk about Africa. So he went and got Nicki Minaj. He could have found probably a million others, and I'm sure there's some Nigerians who are even members of the MAGA movement out there that he could have talked to before he got Nicki Minaj, but he chose Nicki Minaj. Secondly, who is Nicki Minaj in this situation? Nicki Minaj is an entertainer who just wants to be humanitarian about people possibly dying. There's another side of this story, and we'll talk about that in a minute. It's terrible what's really going on over there.
Stole the hot case on hand. Is there religious genocide in Nigeria? Firstly, I'd like to say that whatever issue is in Nigeria, because it was not dealt with, it became a snake with 5 heads or more heads. And so when you are looking at each case, you need to know which head you are dealing with. Bandit is a head. Banditry is a head. Terrorism is a head. Fulani herdsmen carrying guns and invading people's farm, chasing them out is another head. The guys who demand money, what did they call it? Kidnappers is a head, and there are many more heads. And then deliberate chasing of people away from their land and immediately putting another tribe there is a head. So, are these things happening in Nigeria or not? I'll just take you down some historical cases and I'll ask you, is it really happening in Nigeria? Might have seen it.
Significant continental and regional influence, but grapples with violent extremism and internal security. Nigeria's leadership in West Africa is crucial, and its ability to address its governance and security challenges will impact not only its future, but the wider region. Nigeria's instability stems from a key shortcoming. Despite 64 years of independence, it has yet to establish a national identity grounded in basic freedoms and dignity. Currently, ethnicity, religion, and language, rather than nationality, define the identity of its diverse population. Understanding the violence in Nigeria requires looking beyond its apparent religious and ethnic motivations. For me, growing up in Jos Plateau State, I've witnessed the impacts of these ongoing conflicts on vibrant communities, and being in addition a singular conflict. Nigeria is facing multiple security crises due to religious extremism, banditry, criminality, resource competition, communal disputes, and separatist agitation. These issues are intertwined with history, poverty, and political contestation. The interplay between religion and politics in Nigeria is deep and complex. Leaders often romanticize the country's unity, but fail to foster it, as we saw in the divisive 2023 elections.
Countries.
As Nigeria,
we don't. So all of a sudden, Nicki Minaj is now talking about this here. The right-wing MAGA folks are now, applauding her. So really, what's the cause of this violence in Nigeria? And is it recent or has this been happening for a long time?
Well, it's been happening for quite some time, since 2009, orchestrated by Boko Haram. But what has happened is that because this has been such an enduring problem, orchestrated by Boko Haram, it has created a complex security environment where it's just not just Christians that are being targeted, it's also Muslims. And it's so perplexed that when you look at the tactical approach here, many of the attacks are like coming in and saying, oh, are you Christian? Okay, I'm going to attack you for that. No, they're just attacking people. They attack mosques, they attack churches. So it's more perplexed. So when you look at the optics here, it's too one-sided. She needs to be promoting on the fact that it's a humanitarian issue, a humanity issue, and that in terms of interfaith, we need solidarity between the two countries, not just focus on one religious community.
Well,
we certainly need focus placed on the continent of Africa. Northern Africa, the Horn of Africa, Southern Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, West Africa. I mean, there's plenty of work to be done everywhere. So I understand, and I think Nicki Minaj taking a look in the global, into the global landscape and saying, I need to address that issue is a beautiful thing. However, however was coming. The truth is more complicated than this. There are groups, so don't take my word for it. Groups like Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project, the Council on Foreign Relations, they say, and all the evidence I've looked at says, that there's no proof, no evidence that Christians are targeted more than Muslims.
possible action. Meantime, Nigerian President Bola Ahmed Tinubu says religious freedom and tolerance are core tenets of Nigeria's collective identity and will remain so. He also said his administration is committed to working with the U.S. government to protect communities of all faiths. For more on this, I'm joined by Atlantic staff.
All right, the best way I can talk about Nicki Minaj is to talk about the problem in Nigeria. And of course, I'm about to show you the video here. But before I do, let me break down one particular problem they have in Nigeria. It's called Boko Haram. Boko Haram is a self-styled version of the Islamic State. In fact, they have pledged allegiance to the Islamic State. Boko Haram is an Islamic extremist militant group based in northern Nigeria. And the reason why I want to make this important to you to understand the history of Nigeria, southern Nigeria's history is a little bit different than northern Nigeria. Northern Nigeria has seen the Songhai Empire, it has seen the Caliphate in control, it has seen several different Muslim-based kingdoms in the area. The southern part of Nigeria is more Catholic or more Christian oriented, not necessarily Catholic, but Christian oriented. There's also some local religions that are there. There are over 200 other dialects. Now, let me explain this about Nigeria. Nigeria, the national language is English. That's the language for everybody, so everybody pretty much knows English and speaks English. But there are 200 other languages and dialects. There are people who are Bantu, who are people who are Fulani. There's all types of different groups that are here interchanged, and it has caused some conflicts over the years in Nigeria. Not only has it caused conflict, but it has broken out in some ways into genocidal attacks on villages where people have literally ran people out of their farmlands and their homes, and vice versa, those type of things. And it's not always based on Christianity or Islam. Some of it's based on just your tribal issues. And we'll talk more about that later. I'll actually show you a video of that in a minute. But let me explain one of the major groups that's a problem in Nigeria right now. Boko Haram is an Islamic extremist militant group based in northern Nigeria. They have begun attacking in the neighboring countries of Niger, Chad, and Cameroon. Boko Duro is the current militant leader of this group, who came to power after the death of Abubakar Shakau, who succeeded the group's founder, Muhammad Yusuf, after he was killed in captivity. Now, Muhammad Yusuf, a Muslim cleric, founded the group. His ideology saw the Western education was in violation of God's law and opposed Western democracy in favor of an Islamic caliphate. Under Yusuf Muhammad, Boko Haram began its attacks against Nigerian authorities, attacking police and government outposts in northeastern Nigeria. Eventually, Muhammad Yusuf was killed by authorities, and Abubakar Shakau became the leader of the group. Abubakar Shakau became known for his attack on Muslim schools in the northeastern region, where 200 young girls were then systematically kidnapped and forced to convert to Boko Haram versions of Islam. Some of them were Christian and some of them were Muslim, from what I understand. But these 200 girls were kidnapped, abused. That's the only word I can use to say is abused, assaulted. Some of them were killed. Some of them have, and most of the rest of them sold into slavery or forced to marry men that they didn't want to have anything to do with. The group was able to recruit young, disillusioned men who were poor, bullied by corrupt government officials, and just generally tired of living conditions in northeastern Africa. Now, this is another thing. Understand now, the Northeast Africa is the poorer part of Nigeria, while the South is more economically sound, and that leads to conflict as well. However, outside of the issue of Boko Haram, Christian and Muslim Nigerians coexist peacefully for the most part. In fact, the current president of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is married to Christian pastor Alermi Tinubu of the Redeemed Christian Church of God. In other words, Christians and Muslims can coexist in Africa, and they do. But like I said, outside of these extreme groups. In fact, the problem is kind of getting out of hand in some ways. And so, yes, Nigeria needs help with the issue. But the truth is, more Muslims than Christians have died in these conflicts because Boko Haram is basically attacking in places where Muslims live. Other attacks have been attributed to tributaries to the Boko Haram group. Like I said, they pledged their loyalty to ISIS a couple of years ago. But there's also offshoot groups among them who have now started attacking people. In fact, the other day, another group of young ladies were kidnapped by one of these offshoot groups. I don't know if they were have anything to do with Boko Haram or where they were just some bandits, because this is bandit issues in Nigeria. There's a lot of corruption. There's a lot of problems. So it's easy for people not to understand this whole thing. So why am I going after Nicki Minaj? So what Nicki Minaj did basically was to try to simplify this as we're going after Christians. After Christians are the ones the people in Nigeria are going after Christians. Christians are dying, and nobody's helping the Christians in Nigeria. That's why President Trump said what he said a few minutes ago in that post that I showed you a second ago, where he was talking about the need to invade Nigeria, the need to send the military to Nigeria. And I'm going to come back to that in a minute because there's another reason behind the whole charade with Nicki Minaj and all those things, right? And I think it's important that you know what that is on top of all of this going on. So the fact is, there is a problem in Nigeria. Nigeria is trying to handle their problem. They would love help from the United States, but what kind of help should they get from the United States, or are they getting from the United States, would be that question. And so that leads me to this. And I have to bring it up. If you remember Becky DeVos, who was part of the Trump administration in the last term, she has a cousin who was the head of Blackwater. Blackwater is a security firm that has done operations throughout Africa, throughout the Middle East, throughout Asia, a lot of places like that. They've helped the military. They've also done paramilitary operations for these small countries. They've trained their military and things like that. So this particular person decided that for some reason the people of Nigeria cannot handle themselves. People of Africa can't handle themselves, and he said he proposed. Well, watch the video and you'll see what I mean by what he proposed.
To put the imperial hat back on to say we're going to govern those countries if you're incapable of governing yourselves, because enough is enough. We're done being invaded.
Because our own national security risk is it.
Exactly.
Security interests are at stake.
You can say that about pretty much all of Africa. They're incapable of governing themselves and benefiting their citizens because the governments there are all about looting and pillaging and lining their pockets and going shopping in Paris instead of actually making their country better.
Again, this is why Nicki Minaj has no idea what she's getting herself into. She needs to read up a little bit more, understand things, because it's easy for someone to use us as the face of their bad actions. And I'm not saying, necessarily saying that's what Trump's trying to do here, but Nigeria is rich in oil and other minerals that the United States claim that they need. So let's just remember that. Now that he's going after them, just like he's going after Venezuela, it has something that America wants. That's the only reason that any country these folks would go after. That's my take on it as far as that go. Before now, Africa was not that important to these folks at all, and so Nicki Minaj has fallen into that trap. She does not realize what she's getting herself into. In fact, let me give you some more videos before we check out.
This is the worst place for a Christian in the world, and the Christians are persecuted. If you please the issue, and let's talk about the Muslims. So when you see the situation of Muslims, especially in Southeast, even in the South, even in the Southwest, even in South where Muslims seems to be majority, there's a sort of persecution and suppression. So you see, and even in the North, when you see a lot of Muslims killed in their house and homes by these bandits, you can say then is the worst place for a person to be a Muslim in Nigeria. The same thing. It's a mirror image. But the issue is not that. The issue is that we have a clash that has gone bad. Well, how can we, as Nigerians, come together and cure it? Foreigners cannot cure our problem. They cannot even understand what is happening. So when people see this conflict and make it a religious conflict, we just laugh because they like the intelligence and the wisdom to tackle the problem. You see what's happening in Benue, Plateau State, everywhere doing their business fine, and the population are very happy with what they are providing the service. And you have houses everywhere. You go to Agege, you go to here in Lagos, you go to Ibadan, houses everywhere. Yorubas, you go to Maiduguri, doing their business. We Nigerians, we are united. Just go to the market. That's where you know there's unity between Nigerians. And we share the same military, we share the same police, we share the same politics. So I don't know what animosity. Why do we want a narrative that will give a foreigner that has once colonized us, in a sense, because all their origin is from one place. We know it. They went to America, colonized it, and Australia and other areas. So now, how can we give them a Nigeria on the platter of gold? Just like that to come up with us.
All right. You see that this video here shows you the issues that Nigeria has and the things that they're fighting in Nigeria right now to try to get right. It's a fighting process, considering that what I hadn't really talked about was the colonial history. This is a country that's thrown together by the former British colonials who controlled everything in Nigeria. They just wanted the resources. That's all they wanted. They didn't care anything about the country, so they didn't do anything really for the country other than take resources. So when they formed the new country, they didn't go back and like try to, help them form their country. So there were years and years of infighting and back and forth wars till finally Nigeria itself became a stable country, but there's still some issues lingering from those colonial days. Like I said, there's 200 dialects in this country. You put all these people together because, well, they speak English, but over 200 languages, over, you talk about Christianity, Islam in the north, Christianity in the south. It's about 50%, 51% Christian, 48 to 49%, or 51% Muslim, and about 49% African. So it's about split halfway between that. So you got all those conflicts that were not dealt with from the beginning. It's a good thing that the country has a Muslim president and with a wife that's Christian, because it says a lot about the unity that's possible in the country. Okay. But at the same time, we're looking at the problems they're currently having in that country. And no, Nicki Minaj isn't totally wrong for what she's doing, but she needs to be careful who she's dealing with. And the real reason he's even concentrating on Nigeria, it ain't got nothing to do with Christians. I promise you, Christianity is always used as an excuse to do what the West wants to do. Religion is an excuse for a lot of people that they use to do some of their own dirt. Let's just put it that way. So I've said a lot today, talked a lot today. Just remember, I want y'all to do one thing for me. I enjoyed y'all today. Enjoyed talking to y'all. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Peace.
You thought you were woke? No Speed Limit Podcast.